Welcome back to the Poisoner's Almanac, everybody. I am your co-host, Adam.
I am Rebecca. I was literally just scrolling through my phone and heard you start, and I was like, oh, we're doing this.
I surprised you with the start of your own podcast.
Yeah.
That's fine. Happy Black Friday.
Is that a thing everywhere, or is that just in America? That's just in America.
It's just an American thing. Like, of course.
Because Thanksgiving is just an American thing.
That's also just an American thing.
That was yesterday. And I don't know how to feel about, like, Thanksgiving is such a weird holiday to me. It always has been. Because I've heard stories, but then, like, those stories aren't true. Like the stories they tell you in school about, like, some parts of history. It's just like, yeah, they had a great dinner and they had a great time together and they loved each other. It's like,
sure.
Okay.
That's exactly how it happened.
Even back then I was like, ma'am, I don't know that all of that is true.
You get a lot of diet history in elementary school.
Yeah. They make you color, like, I remember we had to color the Christopher Columbus and his stupid, ridiculous self.
He is a celebrity.
Oh my God.
School.
I don't get it. We had to color his stupid ships.
I still know their names.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to do my taxes when I graduated high school, but I know the names of the three ships.
The Pinta, and the Santa Maria.
There it is.
And you had to color them. I still have, like,
had to color them.
Artwork from elementary school that my mom saved. And I was like, what? Why was this a thing? Like, he wasn't even actually the first person here. Okay. Yeah. Anyway.
It was... Boy.
We have a Columbus Day, too.
We do.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's not a holiday for me because, I work in health.
It's like a school holiday, I think. Kids get off. But
yes, it is a school holiday.
They have actually put another name on it, though. I think it's also Indigenous Peoples Day.
Did they really?
Yeah. Which is better.
Wow.
Much better.
Certainly. Because if you really get into the history,
was a jerk.
It's a whole vibe. It's a whole other podcast.
I could call him something else, but there might be children listening.
So yeah, today's Black Friday, and if you're not familiar with what Black Friday is, this is the day in America where adults trample weaker people in stores to get merchandise that is discounted.
Yes, I'll be going nowhere.
That's what we do.
And, like, it's I've been out on Black Friday before. It's actually much better now because most people do online stuff now. So people have changed sales to start at, like, the beginning of the week, and so it's not like if you don't make it that day, you're not going to get the deals.
Cyber Monday is now a thing.
Yeah,
I think that's this following Monday, right?
But even before Thanksgiving, you can go online and get pretty good deals.
Yes, my email has been
flooded. Before it was like you got up at 3 a.m.
Yes.
To get in line, to get in stores. And I only did this like once or twice because my mom made me go. And it was a nightmare.
It sounds like something your mom made you do.
It was a nightmare.
It used to be like Thanksgiving night. Stores started open.
They would open
midnight
at
Thanksgiving
Walmart.
night.
Yeah. And there have been people that have died on Black Friday.
That is a fact. They've been trampled by other shoppers.
It's awful.
Yes. Tickle Me Elmo should,
Was anybody charged?
People should be entitled to compensation.
It's awful.
Yeah. If you've never heard of America, Black Friday's us. That's us.
We did that.
Just do a quick Wikipedia of Black Friday. And you will understand America from the top down.
I feel like other nations have like a black, something or other, but it's like one day in history. It's every year for us. This is every year.
Europe had the Black Plague, but
that was for a couple thousand years.
But that's different.
In different places.
But somehow people died in both instances. Isn't that amazing?
I mean, not as many people died in Black Friday, but I mean, if it had kept going the way it was,
it's just the principle of the thing. So yeah, we've got some housekeeping to do for the old podcast. Thank you guys so much for being with us once again. Be sure to follow us on whatever platform you're listening on. Follow us on our socials. We have links in the show notes, especially the podcast Instagram, Poisoners_Almanac. Thanks for leaving 5-star reviews on your podcast platform. Those are just piling up. Thank you guys so much for doing that. That acts like a digital tip jar. It pushes the podcast further into the algorithms so that it gets it to the ears of listeners like yourself who enjoy it. The Patreon is up and running. There's a link in the show notes to join that. You can join it as a free member, or you can join as a paid patron for a $1 a month, $1 United States dollar per month. The perks include being shouted out by name on this here podcast. You get access to the bonus episodes that my lovely pink-haired wife, that's true, that she records on various other topics. They're like 30-minute bonus episodes where she does a deep dive on something adjacent to or connected to our regular podcast content. You can also leave us a voicemail, which we're going to listen to another one of those. And I have to warn you, it is one of the sweetest things I've ever heard.
Adam was crying, no lie.
A little bit. I had to wipe my eyes. It was
he's a bit
so
sensitive.
I'm a crier. Okay.
He's a crier.
I am the
makes me uncomfortable sometimes.
I'm the rom-com of this relationship.
I'm literally the there. What's the other? Sorrows,
prayers.
That's me.
I've yet to see that actual line in that show, but if I keep seeing it, people commented on social media. What else is there for patrons? For paid patrons? What other perks am I not thinking of?
Why are you asking me?
I'm blanking, guys.
I'm always
so sorry.
blanking.
Okay. Anyways, leave us a voicemail. Like I said, we'd love to hear you guys' wonderful voices, and we play the voicemails here on the podcast. The paying patrons are as follows: 87 Pins Girl 71, Mara Santiago, Kate the Fairy, Grace Lahan, Genevieve, Nahev Shatreet, Jay Went, Incan Hafner, Kira Yorsek, Tay of Sunshine, Monique, Shane R., Sue Steves, James Mills, Megan Geiler, Liz B., Woolly Wolf NZ.
Every time.
Giggle. Mama G, Nicole Rivers, Richard Miyako, Heather Nolan, Katie Rose, Kaylee, Sasha Rubel, Maya Shostak, Maggie's Yarm, Ogre the Viking, Lynn Rocket, Brett Moser, Zaid, Neil Houdini, Nicole Crane, Jefferson Vargas, Carmen Q, Sarah G, Knittin' Ninja, Estar, Olive Octopus, Betsy Rich, Terrorsaurus Hex.
It sounds like Estar and the octopus one should like be pirate buddies. Like they could be on a ship together, cruising the seven seas.
Oh man,
that'd be cool.
What type of movies do pirates love?
R-rated. I know that one.
Yes. Where was I?
Sorry.
T-Bug, Christine Muljati, Morgan Brittingham, Blau Frosch, Kiara, also known as Kiara Jurison, Vix, Caitlin C., Anne Maria, Carl Ziegler Jr., who DM'd me on Patreon. I was like, I didn't hear my name the last couple episodes. I completely left his name off the list by accident.
What's wrong with you?
I'm sorry. I do apologize. I've instituted a performance improvement plan for myself as an employee of this corporation.
I want to see it.
Okay. Clyde, Jennifer Wilson Richter, Macaulay Sterland, and Too Fidgety. Thank you guys so much for being patrons of the podcast. We also have listener support on Spotify, but bad news, Spotify is shutting down listener support in January of this next year. But the people that are listener supporters on Spotify at the moment include Taylor McCaleb, Drew Revis, Heather Nolan, and Delshawn Harris. Thank you guys so much for supporting. I am assuming you guys can migrate to Patreon if you like.
Migrate?
Yes.
So like a land bridge?
Yeah, that's right. When the ice thaws, they're able to make it over to the Patreon.
No, the ice is the land bridge, though, right? They need the ice because
I thought the bridge was made. I thought the land bridge was made of land, or is it ice? Is it permafrost?
Maybe, like back in the day, they would cross and then it melted and then they couldn't cross anymore.
Okay.
Are they gonna walk on the water? They're not Jesus.
These are important questions. Speaking of questions, send us questions or comments, or content suggestions to the podcast Instagram, ideally. Link in the show notes to follow that. All right. Let us move on to our latest listener voicemail. And this is so cute. I love it so much. This is from Betsy Rich. Her name is Blair, but she goes by Betsy Rich on the Patreon.
Yeah, she sent me a really cool message on Instagram.
Yes. All right, here we go.
Hi. My name's Blair. Online, I go by Betsy Rich, and it took me 5 or 6 tries to record this because I hate my own voice, but I also hate phone calls, and voicemail reminds me of that. I'm ADHD. I'm from St. John, New Brunswick in Canada, and yours is the first podcast I've ever listened to. People have been trying to get me into podcasts since my early 20s, and it seemed overwhelming because whenever anybody recommends me something, I always kind of hesitate because I'm afraid there'll be follow-up questions or too much of a commitment. It's weird in my head, but I just wanted to thank you for your podcast and just who you are as people and your TikTok, because it's saved a lot of aspects of my 17-year-long relationship with my partner who's neurotypical. I'm able to do housework and to-dos all day long because I have your podcast playing in my ears. And your conversation and your jokes and your banter is so comfortable to me. It's like having adorable Southern friends with the best accents ever always playing in my ears. So I will stop rambling and possibly leave another one of these, but maybe this one's good enough. But I just want to say thank you. Thank you from little old Blair in St. John. Bye.
Oh,
That's so fun.
that was so cute. Oh my goodness, Blair. Listen, baby, that was the sweetest voicemail we've ever gotten. I got to tell you.
Oh my gosh. Do I have an accent?
I think we do.
We do, yeah.
I think we do. Obviously, we don't.
We don't hear it because we're
No,
around.
because we're born.
There are people here that have like way deeper Southern accents.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
That was so heartwarming to hear that, especially as an ADHD person, which is autism and ADHD together, for those of you who don't know, which Becca is ADHD herself.
Yes. I actually hate the sound of my own voice too. Like that
she
was
does. And so she started a podcast.
Well, it's funny because like that was like keeping me from starting it. And then I was finally like, let's just try it.
I'm just now realizing how big of a victory this was for you to do this.
Oh, even when I do the bonus episodes, it takes me a few tries to start because I'm like, what do I do?
And your voice is so soothing. It's so comforting. I listen to the bonus episodes.
Starting and ending things, like that transition is always very hard for me. Once I'm talking about the thing I like love to talk about, I could do it.
Yes.
Well, not just that, but like just like it's like when you write an essay, like the beginning of the essay is kind of hard to start for me. The conclusion is too. But I can write those body paragraphs really well and then come back and do the others. Anyway, it's just, yeah.
Wow. So I just love, especially when she mentioned her relation, 17 years she's been with this person. And it has helped her, our videos and the podcast have helped her with that relationship. Like that is so incredible.
Well, we've definitely had our miscommunications before knowing a
a
lot about ourselves. So.
Well, yeah. Well, we did, it helped to, we had no idea that my wife was autistic until a couple of years ago.
Today is Native American Heritage Day.
It is. I almost mentioned that earlier.
Oh, happy Native American Heritage Day, y'all.
There you go.
Love it.
And also I really noticed what she said about how listening to the podcast actually helps her just accomplish tasks throughout the day.
Yeah.
And when you're neurodivergent, when like the ADHD people have so much trouble with executive function, autistics can struggle with perfectionism and transitions, like you said. And it's so strange to live in that world because it is disabling in many ways, but it's not one of those disabilities that people take very seriously, and like in the general public, because you're not in a wheelchair or you're not, in a facility or something like that. And so you end up gaslighting yourself. Like, do I really have anything wrong? Like I'm a normal person.
Maybe
right?
I'm just lazy.
Exactly.
I think that a lot.
Maybe
too.
I'm just lazy. Maybe I'm just this. Maybe it isn't real. Maybe
I'm making all this up. It's because you've been told that. Hey, just stop being lazy.
Just do it. Just do it.
No, it's a little harder than that. Yeah.
That's right. And the truth is, we've discovered this. I've got a doctorate in my field. I'm a licensed physical therapist. Becca is a registered nurse and a certified teacher. There are differences in the neurodivergent brain. There are structural differences. There are pathway differences. It's real. But finding support and finding strategies or help for how to navigate all this stuff can be really tough.
I used to feel guilty because I thought of myself as like a failed nurse. Because I was like, I made it this far Like, because school was great because like school has
You love
structure.
school? Yes.
It
You love
has all
school.
this stuff, but like, I don't know,
Mhm.
like when I was working as a nurse,
Oh, baby.
I did my best until I was basically just breaking down in the bathroom
Yes.
every other hour.
And you had to keep that secret from me, a fellow healthcare
Everybody.
worker, from everyone.
Because I didn't,
Well, especially from me, your husband, you live in the same house with. You couldn't tell me about that because I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, well, it was rough.
So, and then on top of that, bedside nursing in America is a meat grinder.
It is. It's rough, but like even after like leaving, like years after, I felt guilty.
Mhm.
Like, like why can't I
Yeah,
just do this like regular people?
of course. So
Like when,
all that to
So.
say, Blair, that's so incredible. I mean, we
Indeed.
make our video content we make that you guys will see when you follow us. Like, we're trying to support neurodivergent people because it's just a strange landscape to find yourself in.
and we're still learning ourselves.
We are still learning. We say our sign off on our videos now is follow us. We don't know where we're going because it's so much unknown on top of all the things we already
into
have
the
learned.
unknown. Sorry.
Oh, excuse me. So anyways, Blair, that was super sweet. Thank you so much for being a patron and for having the courage to record that voicemail.
Yeah, it's hard.
And be perceived by other human beings, because that is sometimes completely unnerving for autistic folks. So thank you.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Like she said, I've recorded 5 of these.
I do that with the bonus episodes sometimes. I'll record and be like, I didn't like that at all.
I didn't like that, and start over.
Yeah, I will.
Because I'm not here to tell you it's fine.
No,
It was fine.
Yeah, but like hearing my own voice by itself often feels so ew. I don't know. I get it though.
You and your pink hair are so cute. I'm just
Okay.
kidding. Okay. What are we talking about today, my dear?
Well, as we've already said, it's been Thanksgiving week here in the U.S. I say week because my daughter has a whole week off.
Yeah.
Back in the day, we only got like 3 days off.
Right. We finally disavowed ourselves.
It's just
of the
one day.
illusion. Yeah.
But
you'd have Thursday off, and that would be the holiday. Then it was Thursday, Friday, because like 75% of kids weren't showing up to school the next day because it's Black Friday.
Right.
And then finally they just owned up to the reality that just give them the whole week.
And then Saturday was Purple Saturday. So we just had to. I'm just kidding. I have no idea. I just made that up. I did make that up.
Actually, Fuchsia Sunday was my favorite.
Oh. Well, so yeah, but Thanksgiving is just one day. But this past week has been full of holiday-fueled chaos. So I thought I would try to pick something that fit the season. So let's talk about foodborne illnesses.
Let's do it.
Like Salmonella. I was actually going to do Listeria along with some good old-fashioned botulism. However, Listeria unhappily did not make the cut, as this just got pretty deep once I got into Salmonella and botulism. So Listeria will have to wait for another episode.
Please do. It's in the news.
First, one that many of us hear about most often, Salmonella. And before you get too excited, E. coli is going to come up in a later episode as well. Because while it is a foodborne illness, I wanted to talk about it alongside cholera and Vibrio, probably, in a separate future episode. So who knows, maybe Listeria will be a part of that too. Yeah, so now that I have disappointed some of you, back to Salmonella. So it's a gram-negative, rod-shaped bacteria. Before anyone asks, it has nothing to do with salmon at all. But it was named after a veterinary pathologist named Daniel Elmer Salmon. Do you say salmon or do you say salmon?
Salmon, bro, not an animal.
Yeah, who said it? But isn't there like some areas people say salmon? Or is it always salmon?
I think there are some lunatics out there who will pronounce that L. I know they're out there. And they have criminal records.
Adam, you say Appalachia wrong.
What are you supposed to say it?
You said Appalachia.
I did, but I mean, come on.
That's how I say it.
I'll say it how the Appalachians say it.
I'm pretty sure that's how they say it. Is that how y'all say it? I'm pretty sure. Anyway. So, yeah. He, along with his assistant, Theobald Smith, and I say
it's a name.
Yes, Theobald. It's B-A-L-D, so I'm going to say it that way because it's fun. discovered the bacteria in hogs that had died of what was then termed hog cholera. I think like if things were dying back then and it looked like a gastric sort of deal, they were just like cholera. That sounds good.
We'll just put the name of the animal in front of it.
And that was around 1885. It was discovered sooner than this, however, by Dr. Carl Joseph Eberth. That's Carl with a K. I always think it's cool, like when you
that's like the
spell the
Eastern
name with a K.
European Russian Carl.
I always thought it was German.
Is it German? Yeah, Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, well, yeah, he's a German pathologist and
Well, there you go.
bacteriologist.
See?
Yeah.
See, this is why this podcast hired me.
Who found it in abdominal lymph nodes and in the spleen in 1879. Doing some pretty internal work there.
Yeah.
In 1880, he published his findings describing what was suspected as the cause of typhoid.
Okay.
This would later be confirmed. Typhoid is caused by one of the many strains of Salmonella, often called Salmonella typhi.
Oh, okay.
I
never knew that was connected.
Yeah. There are more than 2,500 serotypes. Serotypes are a little bit different than strains, just to get to the nitty-gritty. Different strains of Salmonella bacteria can be categorized into various serotypes based on their specific surface antigens. So that's, and if you have no idea what I'm talking about, it's okay because we're not going to go too deep into that, but that's just...
I'd like to.
Anyway.
It's interesting.
just to be sort of accurate. I'm just trying to be accurate.
Trust me, bro.
Antigens play an important role in epidemiological typing, like serotyping, due to the fact that there are variations in antigen composition even between closely related microorganisms. So that's why it's kind of important to identify that.
I'm into it.
Now, anyway, there are typhoidal. It's fun. Typhoidal.
It's an adjective also?
So, meaning, of course, causing...
Can't wait to listen to this later.
Meaning, of course, causing typhoid fever or paratyphoid fever and non-typhoidal. So let's go over the latter first, then come back to the other. Non-typhoidal Salmonella does not cause typhoid fever, and it presents usually with acute diarrhea, abdominal cramps, and fever. This is the type when you hear Salmonella, you think of most often. It's often...
Sorry.
Would you like to...
I just wanted to say, I recently watched a deep dive, the history of the Oregon Trail computer game. And it was
dysentery.
amazing.
We need to do dysentery.
Yes, Queen. It's so fun to watch.
Adds to list.
Yes.
Anyway,
as you were.
You died of dysentery. That game was tough, and I know it needed to be, but like gamers today, like the kids who play like their little Roblox games and their, and those like they don't know. They don't know. Like if you died, that's it. No Oregon Trail for you. You got to start all over.
Oh my God! Why didn't somebody tell me about the restricted respawn modifier?
And like we had to play. If you had to have your floppy disk to play. That's how you saved your game. It was crazy.
You could write what you wanted on your tombstone if you died, and people put the foulest stuff you could think of.
Yeah. And back in the day, textbooks that were in the classrooms, like, did you ever have a textbook that was like, turn the page, da-da-da-da-da, and it was like a very not so nice drawing of something? You remember that crap?
Yes.
Like, it shouldn't surprise me, the state of the world today, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway. But yeah, it's often transmitted to humans when we eat contaminated foods such as dairy. This does include raw, unpasteurized milk, eggs, meat, and raw produce. You should always be washing your fruits and veg before eating them, especially if you're traveling or in a place you're not sure about, the water or anything like that. You should make sure you're cleaning them with boiled water, I guess. So, but it can also infect via contaminated water or with direct contact with infected animals or their environments. It can actually spread with direct contact with a person who is infected, especially if they don't wash their hands. Wash your hands.
I'm such a fan of hand washing.
Yes, hand washing is a big deal.
We
Especially like for this, it's especially if they go to the bathroom and don't wash their hands.
Mhm.
Because, yeah.
I literally walked into a situation last night where someone had been sick, and it's an extremely contagious infection they had, and we ended up having to leave, and it was disappointing. So yeah,
Yep.
when we got home, we immediately washed our hands, and it was rough.
And we hope for the best. I mean, I wasn't there
Mhm.
because I don't like going
Yeah.
to places.
You needed to take time for yourself.
I did.
Yep.
But yeah. Incubation period is between 12 and 96 hours, sometimes longer. So that's fun.
Mhm.
And it often resolves within 7 days without treatment because, if you're healthy, you can usually wait for it to pass on its own.
Mhm.
Typical treatment is rehydration and comfort care if needed, because usually you get dehydrated if you're throwing up a lot or if you've got
Mhm.
diarrhea, especially for young children or
Mhm.
elderly. Antibiotics are not recommended for most with uncomplicated cases, as it doesn't seem to shorten the illness anyway. About 5% of these, about 5% of those infected develop bacteremia or some invasive infection, like osteomyelitis, meningitis, endovascular infection, or septic arthritis. And all of those are exactly as it's described, an invasive infection. It gets into your bones, gets into your, blood, it gets into your
Yikes.
joints, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So, now antibiotics may be used in the care of those kinds of infections. So, now the best prevention is to just wash your hands and be sure food is cooked well. Washing fruit and vegetables, and avoid being served food by those with illness. All of these, especially when traveling, because, it's just, if it's endemic somewhere and you go travel there and people aren't washing their hands, you have a much higher chance of catching it.
Oh, yes.
So basically, this sounds like food poisoning because it is a food poison. Like it's, it's
Yes.
spread
You're
that
being
way.
poisoned by some food.
Right. Now, typhoidal salmonella, basically types causing typhoid or paratyphoid fever, and we're going to be talking mainly about typhoid itself, can be life-threatening. Many historians believe it was typhoid fever that killed a third of the population of Athens in 430 BC, including Pericles, their leader at the time.
Wow.
Ancient historian Thucydides, I love saying his name.
Say it again.
Thucydides.
Ooh, say it again.
Oh my God. He wrote about the illness after surviving it himself. So, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then, he told that story about what happened. So,
Okay.
now between 1607 and 1624, typhoid killed more than 6,000 Jamestown settlers, Jamestown, Virginia.
Yeah.
But yeah, and there has been talk of that possibly leading to the demise of that particular settlement. So, no fun.
Did it really wipe it out?
Pretty well. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't the only thing.
I felt like that settlement lasted though. Like it remained. Was that the first one? Jamestown, Virginia. I've been there actually.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big deal.
Mhm.
It ended in 1699 when it
Oh.
was moved to Middle Plantation, which was renamed Williamsburg.
Oh, they relocated to Williamsburg.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was such a wild time to colonize, just from a microbiological perspective, because you're moving
Well, they also thought
to a
back
different
then.
Continent.
Well, they didn't even know what microbiology was. Most of
course
them.
not.
It was the devil.
So they're
Witches.
witchcraft.
Yeah.
She's a witch. They all of a sudden start accusing and killing their own, and it's like, do you guys know how hard it was just to get here and stay alive? Why are you killing each other?
It's anytime. Yeah.
Realize how lucky you are. Stop killing each other.
Like the witch trials, just reading about them, hearing about them. I don't know. And then they just stopped and went about their business. Like it was like nothing happened. And
It's amazing. It's amazing. There was no
well, it's like, did they look back and say, oh yeah, that sucked, I guess.
Ugh.
Ooh, cringe. Don't think about that.
Anyway.
it's just, it just.
Yes, very sad. Anyway.
Oh gosh, I have a feeling I would have been called a witch. Anyway.
Oh God, pink hair.
Look, it wouldn't have been pink then, but now typhoid fever also caused around 900,000 deaths during the Crimean War in 1853 to 1856.
900,000. Is that Ukraine?
Crimean War? Russian and Ottoman.
Okay.
So, anyway, but that was in 1853 to 1856. A typhoid epidemic in Finland killed 270,000 people in 1866.
Wow.
It was especially feared in camps.
Excuse me.
It was especially feared in camps during war times and during the American Civil War. The Union Army documented 27,058 typhoid fever deaths out of the 75,148 infections.
Wow.
That's a 36% mortality rate.
Yeah.
From 1900 to 1904, 26.7 out of every 100,000 deaths was from typhoid. That exceeds scarlet fever, whooping cough, influenza, or measles at that time. And yes, measles does kill people.
It does.
It does. I remember some lady commented on something you put on Facebook, and it was something we knew, and they were like, measles doesn't kill people. And I was like,
no.
Oh, I have been called. I have been summoned. Anyway.
ADHD has entered the chat.
Ma'am. Anyway. So typhoid fever is also known as enteric fever. And it's caused by Salmonella enterica, serotype typhi, but it's sometimes just called Salmonella typhi.
Gotcha.
Just to
enteric is in the gut.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So to prevent confusion, Salmonella typhi, I'll probably just go with that. And symptoms show about 6 to 30 days after exposure. While the Salmonella bacteria was found to be the cause of typhoid in 1880, the name typhoid fever was actually coined in 1829 by Pierre Louis, who had discovered lesions in the abdominal lymph nodes of those who had died of gastric fever. He didn't know what they were, but he used this word, which was taken from the Greek word typhus, meaning smoky. And this apparently pertained to the delirium that was being experienced by those with the disease, probably later in the disease process.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So that's the etymology of the name.
Okay. Those infected carry it within their bloodstream and intestinal tract. Symptoms of infection include prolonged high fever, which itself would cause delirium in some.
Yeah.
Headache, nausea, abdominal pain, and diarrhea or constipation. Some infected have a rash, pretty rash all over, and severe infection can lead to serious complications or death. It is most common where there is poor sanitation practices and unsafe drinking water. Also, good hygiene, especially hand hygiene, is a must, especially with those preparing food. Where hygiene, antibiotics, and proper care can be provided, infections rarely result in death these days. Treatment is obviously with antibiotics in this case, but it should be known that even when symptoms are gone, a person can still carry and spread the disease, especially without proper hand washing, until it's fully out of the body. So they can test urine and stool samples and stuff to see if you still have the bacteria in your body. Basically.
Okay.
But yeah, so you can have no symptoms and still be spreading it.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. We're going to talk about somebody in just a minute who was doing that. So proper hand washing is a must anyway. There is a vaccine against typhoid in particular that was developed in 1896 by British and German scientists Almroth Edward Wright, Richard Pfeiffer, and Wilhelm Kohl.
You said Wilhelm.
Wilhelm. Not so much together at this time. They weren't there was actually some argument between who discovered it first between a few of those. So,
were they,
but they all but their work combined really led to the discovery of or creation of this vaccine.
Were they colleagues or just contemporaries?
Mainly contemporaries.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Now, as of 2019, there are 9 million cases, or there were 9 million cases of typhoid fever annually, resulting in 110,000 deaths per year. Not bad now that we have antibiotics, but also not great.
Yeah.
It's still endemic in parts of Africa, Eastern Mediterranean, Southeast Asia, and Western Pacific regions. I think some areas in South America have dealt with it too. So, which is close to an area that I mentioned, but still. The vaccine for those over 2 years old, pretty much, it's, should be given to anyone like over 2 years old. You're not supposed to have it under 2. Has
Is
been
it part of like standard vaccine schedule for children?
I'm getting there.
Oh,
okay.
Sorry.
Not here though.
Okay.
But it's been prioritized for areas where it is endemic.
Yeah.
Or where there are high levels of antibiotic resistance. So it's actually been added to childhood vaccine routines for in those areas.
Right.
So to prevent them from getting that. And there are areas where there is antibiotic resistance to this. It's not cool.
That's rough.
Yeah. It's also available for those who are traveling to areas where it's endemic, like if you want it. For those traveling anywhere, if you want to prevent illness, this and other illnesses really like this, make sure food is properly cooked and still hot when served. Don't let it just sit out. And funny story. Not funny then, but we were heading to a Thanksgiving meal yesterday.
Oh boy.
And the night before, my mother had given Camilla some like turkey she had just made in this little Ziploc bag to take home because she was hungry, and it had just been cooked, and she put it in a bag for her.
Yep.
And she was eating it on the way home. And the next morning, I didn't know the bag had been left in there. I thought she'd taken it out. I should have known better. She never takes anything out.
No.
I get in the car to see if she has her Invisalign because we're about to leave. And she's like, I'm eating my turkey. And I was like, no! No! I made her spit it out and go immediately brush her teeth. She swears she didn't swallow any of it, but it had been left there all night in the car in that Ziploc bag. And she's like, the bag was closed. I'm like, it's not chips.
No.
You can't do that, sweetie. So that was a little lesson.
Yep.
Right there. That was fun. Anyway, as I was saying, make sure food
is... It's fine because you're totally over it.
Oh my God, I'm not. Make sure food is properly cooked and still hot. Don't leave it in the car overnight and then go eat it again. Avoid raw milk. Avoid ice where there is unsafe water. A lot of people don't think about that sometimes. Like, ice is water. Yeah. Be careful, please.
And the vast majority of your ice makers, you're just using tap water.
Yeah. Also, if there's a boil advisory, don't forget your ice. Like if it's been made within that time period, just be careful. If the water is questionable, it should be boiled or disinfected. Like some places have these little things you can put in water to help disinfect it. Drinking water, I mean. Now, wash your hands, please, thoroughly and frequently using soap. Wash your fruits and vegetables before eating them. If the area is very questionable, you can peel them before eating them, if you can.
I've gotten to where if I take our trash can out to the street for pickup, as soon as I come back in, I wash my hands because I've touched the
I can't
trash
touch. Yeah. If I touch my counter, I wash my hands. I am I'm kind of a germaphobe. I really am. And my grandfather was too. My grandfather used to make me wash my hands 3 times. And I had to dry them because if I didn't dry them, it's like wet germs will be there. I don't know. Like my grandfather was very much like that too.
Some things are still sticking around from COVID, from when the hand washing was just top of the list. And now I'm like, I'm just going to keep doing that.
What's funny is like, I felt like the world finally kind of understood how I thought when COVID hit. Cause I was like, I'm already doing this. Well, some of them did, not all of them. But like, for me, like that was my life already. My hands are constantly my hands look like the oldest part of my body because they're so dry from me washing them so much.
Well, you keep.
I need to use hand cream.
You keep.
Well,
hand
for
cream
my face, I'm really responsible with moisturizer and sunscreen on my face.
Mhm.
I really need to put like hand cream on my hands, but I hate the feeling of it. I hate it. I hate the feeling of lotions on my hands and my fingers.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm sorry. We're coming back. We're coming back.
Well,
We're
just
coming
wash
back.
your hands after you put the hand cream on.
No, because then it feels funnier. Oh my God, you don't understand. Okay, I'm moving on.
Okay.
Because now I can feel it on myself. Ugh.
No, you're
Okay,
fine.
but we can't talk about typhoid without bringing up Typhoid Mary. Do you remember Typhoid Mary?
We must.
You ever heard that? You've heard the story.
I have.
Okay. Mary Mallon, I think that's the way you say her last name. Mary Mallon was born in 1869 in Ireland. And she came to the U.S. in 1884, where she lived with her aunt and uncle, and found work as a maid before becoming a cook for wealthy families. Real quick, some people say aunt, right? Instead of aunt.
Yeah,
We say aunt.
We do. It depends on where in the country you're from.
Yeah.
Different parts of the country pronounce that word.
Because I've heard auntie.
Right. It's spelled with an AU, which is generally pronounced as an aw sound.
Yeah, but here, like, everybody says things.
But if you get up into Appalachia, you're going to hear Aunt Rachel.
Aunt Rachel. It's ain't there. It's aunt here.
That's right.
Aunt.
Aunt Cindy made that casserole, y'all.
Our eyes. I have a hard time with the eyes. Like, I can't think of an example. Knife. Like, what is my life?
Mm-hmm.
Lie. I can do it. Life. But I have to do it slowly. But if it's just me, I'm like, laugh. Like the I sounds more like an A almost.
Knife is one that is the most common word that tips off your Southern accent.
Anyway.
Or like the short I sound.
Yeah.
For the deep Southern accent. You just living in sin. Sin.
Also, when we cuss.
That dog bit him.
Yeah. When I feel like when Southerners cuss, there's like emphasis on that middle.
Yes.
Every vowel is like drawn out.
We have auxiliary vowels. There's a usage of multiple vowels to express what on the page is a single vowel.
Yeah. But
it's talent, I tell you.
It's something. So, yeah, Mary found work as a maid before becoming a cook for wealthy families. Some think she may have been born with typhoid, actually, as her mother was infected with it while pregnant.
Oh, wow.
Whatever the case, she began carrying it around everywhere with her, asymptomatically. She was fine. Like, she felt fine, but she was carrying it everywhere with her.
Wow.
So between 1900 and 1907, she worked for 8 different families in the New York City area. And she ended up infecting like 7 of these different families with typhoid while there, like multiple people within those families.
It's crazy. She was not ill herself, though.
So breaking it down, the first family she worked for developed typhoid symptoms within 2 weeks. She then moved on to Manhattan to work there, where the family started experiencing symptoms of fever and diarrhea. So she went to work for a lawyer. Like, she just kept
moving on.
Yeah, once she but 7 out of 8 within that household became ill with typhoid. So she left there and went to work for another lawyer. Here, she passed the infection to 4 out of the 7 servants that were there. The family lived apart from them, basically, so they weren't like in constant contact with them. Once this outbreak sparked, she moved to a different household where within 2 weeks, another worker contracted typhoid fever and later died. In 1906, she moved on to Oyster Bay on Long Island to work for a wealthy banker. Within a few months, 6 out of the 11 family members became ill. And then when doctors in this area were kind of investigating this outbreak, like they noticed like people are getting sick with typhoid. We haven't seen this in a while. And they were like, this is actually kind of rare for this area. So, they were like, we need to sort of look into this. Now, there had been an investigator following the multiple outbreaks, and and they had narrowed the case pretty much down to Mary. Like, they noticed, like, okay, what was going on that was similar to these families? Like, oh, she was the cook. That's odd. Maybe it comes back to her. So when he finally found her, because she kept moving around and without giving her like forwarding address. So took a while to find her. When he finally found her and confronted her about it, she threatened him with a carving knife because she was offended. She claimed like that she wasn't the source, you know?
Yeah. She would never intentionally
Well, she wasn't intentionally doing it, and she wasn't like, she didn't have any symptoms. And so like whether she thought she might be spreading it around or that she was a part of what was spreading it around or not, like she couldn't have like known for sure. She didn't have any symptoms.
No. And this is
maybe she thought she was cursed. That'd be funny. Like, oh my God, everybody's getting sick.
No, it reminds me of, so during when COVID was at its height, obviously like people like you and me who work in healthcare, we're paying close attention to the details about how infection spreads. For us to say that, oh, you can be asymptomatic and carrying the virus, that made 100% sense to us because
you can do that with many viruses and bacteria.
Do that with a lot of sicknesses, yeah. Even in the animal kingdom, there's plenty of animals, filter feeding shellfish that can totally be contaminated with toxins in their flesh, but the animal never becomes ill themselves. So we were already there. We're like, okay, it's asymptomatic. 2-week incubation period.
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning they were saying like 7 to 14 days, I think.
Right.
Now it's like test once you're at 5 days or something like that.
Yeah. But like to communicate that level of complexity to the general public was a nightmare. Because for the public, it just doesn't trigger their alarms unless somebody is really sick.
Well, I think that's honestly, in a way, a failure of, I don't want to blame it on anybody, but it just feels like maybe we don't have enough public health teaching, like going around, like before that, like, because it's like, I don't know, it just feels like they didn't know. I mean, they knew to wash their hands because if you didn't, you were gross. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that was understood.
But it's also about stopping the spread of illness.
Right. Like it.
Yeah.
And some people knew that, but like then there was the like, oh, you actually have to wash your hands this long with soap. You can't just like dip and go.
Yeah.
It's not the same. So I feel like there was definitely not enough.
It was
understanding.
It just seemed insurmountable as far as just the public health knowledge in that situation. Like people were just, and then I'd randomly run into like a patient's spouse who was like washing their hands with Clorox because they were a germaphobe. And I'm like, please don't do that.
Be careful
You're going to break
the
skin on your hands.
Which will actually introduce things.
You're actually going to get sick a different way doing that. But anyway.
But and then like we didn't exactly have, there's not a whole lot of trust for certain people or people groups in the healthcare system. And for a lot of them, I do get it because there were quite a number of failures when it came to those people or those groups of people.
I had conversations with people about the Tuskegee experiments, and it was bad. Some of them brought it up to me.
It's rough, yeah.
And I was like, "Yep, I know you know about that." Anyways,
it's a lot. We should talk about that too.
Oh yeah.
Now, after the New York City Health Department found out about Mary, she was arrested as a public health threat and basically forced to give urine and stool samples to test. Because before
she was a little intense.
Before she was like saying, "I'm not giving you any samples" or anything like that. And they were like, "Well, she's a public health threat at this point." There is going to be some ethical concerns in some of this, so I'm interested to hear your take on it.
I don't know this part.
The amount of typhoid bacteria found in her stool pointed to her gallbladder as hiding the illness. I'm not sure exactly. Like basically it was holding on to that illness and just.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they were basically like, it's got to be her gallbladder. I'm not sure exactly how they were able to pinpoint that specifically, but it doesn't help that Mary admitted that she hardly ever washed her hands because like, remember how we said that germ theory, like it took a while to take hold.
Yes.
She's over here never washing her hands and preparing food for these people.
Oh, I'm reminded of the public health inspection report that is taped inside the window of every drive-thru. Sometimes I see that score and I'm like, oh boy, I've already paid for my food.
Am I going to pay for it again?
What will the true cost be?
Yeah. Anyway, but so she was sentenced to quarantine on North Brother Island.
Oh, wow.
Where she was made to provide urine and stool samples 3 times a week.
Okay.
So, yeah, a little bit of an ethical concern here because it's and you're thinking like, well, what do we do with her? You know, how can we get her to stop spreading this illness? But at the same time, like, it's not like she's trying to make people
pretty
sick.
much ignorant of,
And so now it was suggested that her gallbladder be removed, but she refused because she did not believe she was carrying the illness still, and it was also a very dangerous procedure back then. People died from that back then. So, like, I get why she would not want to do that.
Remind me what year this is
also,
again?
she's a woman living in this time period. Like, I feel like
she could die and nobody will care.
Yeah, and
she could be tortured and die gruesomely and nobody cares.
This is the early 1900s. Very early 1900s.
Okay. Yeah, nobody's going to care.
So, yeah.
It seems like working poor, working class.
Cares. And she's refusing to stop being a cook because it made good money. It was like the only thing that really made her good money. And she's not wealthy at all.
It's be a cook or starve.
Yeah. So it's a very, like, it's a very, there's a lot of ethics in this. Like, what do we do?
And this is before there was any sort of welfare program in the United States. That did not come about until decades later. You couldn't just get disabled. You ended up in a poorhouse. Or you died in the street. There was no, the poor were in a rough position at this point.
Yeah. Now, and they still are in a lot of places.
Yeah.
So, yeah. An article concerning her being an asymptomatic carrier of typhoid actually is what earned her the nickname in the media as Typhoid Mary, which she hated.
I can't imagine why.
Now, she stayed in quarantine for like 2 years.
What?
Which was fought against by her lawyer, and some doctors who argued that Mary could just learn proper hygiene to prevent the spread. And she was also treated with various drugs that weren't all that great on her body. Like they nearly sent her into kidney failure at one point. And like, there's talk like that maybe like they were just kind of experimenting on her at this point. There's a lot of, like I told you, there's a lot of crazy ethics stuff going on.
Yeah,
that you're going to be asking yourself, like, I mean, I understand why they didn't want her spreading the illness, but this is not humane.
It's not based on clinical reasoning.
Well, it's like
they just don't want to get sued. They don't want to be charged with murder.
No, but at the same time, it's like, well, she sued them too, and she lost.
Of course,
but because
you're a woman, so you lose.
Well, and like, because like that's gotta really suck. I mean, like, your freedom has been taken away from you for something you can't help.
It's true. It's a very difficult situation.
Yeah. She was released after promising to seek a new career and to practice good hand hygiene and all. However, after a while, she did go back to cooking because it was really the only job she could do that would make money.
Yeah.
But she started working using different surnames and moving around a lot because everywhere she went, typhoid outbreaks followed her. They just continued to follow her.
Wow.
In 1915, she started working as a cook for Sloan Hospital for Women in New York City. 25 became ill and 2 died of typhoid fever. So this is like 3 deaths in total now since she's passed this on to people.
Yeah.
A doctor there, he was an obstetrician. He actually called for an investigation, and Mary was again discovered as the source, recognized by the same investigator as
God,
the first one.
Guy?
Yeah.
It's not going to go with.
Now, she fled because she knew she was in trouble, but she was caught and put back into quarantine. She stayed this time for 23 years.
I did not know this part.
But this time she was given a private cottage and later was allowed day trips to the city. It was a very complicated situation.
I mean, as the state of New York, like eventually I just throw it up the flagpole and I'm like, listen, we don't know what to do. You're just going to have to give her a house and a stipend. I'm sorry. It's just, you got to,
Now, yeah, in 1932, she had a stroke and never fully recovered. She ended up with hemiplegia. She had paralysis
on one side.
Yeah. She ended up dying on November 11th, 1938 from pneumonia at the age of 69. She was cremated and her ashes were buried at St. Raymond's Cemetery in the Bronx. So,
wow.
That's the story of Mary Mallon. She hated being called Typhoid Mary, so. But that's, how she became Typhoid Mary.
It's like when there was a guy named Steve Bartman who interfered with a pop fly at a Chicago Cubs playoff game. After that play, the tide of the game seemed to turn and the Cubs lose. And Steve Bartman's face was everywhere in the world after that. There was a legitimate chance. Literally, he almost reached onto the field of play and interfered with a pop fly and prevented the Cubs left fielder from catching this ball. And I mean, his life was over.
Oh my God.
People threw beer on him immediately.
Oh, it's just a game.
Oh, friend.
People are going to come for me for that.
Oh, yeah. So
it's not worth ruining somebody's life. Though.
It isn't, but they sure tried. Fast forward to 2016, the Cubs win the World Series finally for the first time since I think it's 1908. This is 2016, 108 years later. Steve Bartman releases a public comment and says, "I'm really happy to see the Cubs win the World Series and to hopefully, put this chapter of my life behind me, et cetera, et cetera. I will not be commenting publicly on this ever again."
Probably tired of it.
The tone of the comment was like, "I hate all of you."
Yeah, I mean, they wrecked his mental health.
Oh man, because it was on national television.
Well, yeah,
and because he's a native. Look, it was a playoff game. He got excited. He wanted to catch a foul ball from a playoff game.
I understand that people like sports and like games and stuff. I will never understand the obsession.
Well,
and I am one who gets obsessed with weird things. I understand, but I'm not going to ruin somebody's life over it.
Of course not.
That's insanity to me.
The short explanation, we talked about this before, because I've thought about this too, because I was an athlete at one time. I still love sports today. I'm still a massive baseball fan, but I don't understand people burning furniture in the street when Michigan loses to Ohio State. I just don't understand. But the short explanation is, people intertwine their participation in their closest relationships and social groups with a sports team, because they do this. They engage in their fandom with people they care deeply about, so they end up caring deeply about the Cubs.
I guess I will never understand it, I guess then.
Oh no, of course not. But you marry me so I can, attempt to explain.
Well, we live down here in the South where college football is 100%. Whole religion, basically. I mean, it is insane. I have seen people fight in the streets over this stupid
stuff. They have a pastor for their religion. His name is Nick Saban.
But I also have heard soccer is a big deal in some places. There are people that were trampled to death over soccer and stuff. So it's not, I know it's not just here.
I saw a video, a TikTok. I think I sent it to you. This guy who lived in England for an American. He went to many football matches, as they would call them.
Yes, of course.
And he said, these people, the UK people, they swear, they use the foulest language you can conceive of the entire game. Children are just screaming the foulest anatomical references.
I would be laughing so hard, to be honest.
I was laughing too, but I'm just like, yep, that's,
oh my gosh.
That's it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Anyways, all that to say, Typhoid Mary, she was Steve Bartman 100 years before the fact. She was around when the Cubs won the World Series.
I mean, Steve Bartman didn't get anybody killed on accident
he did not,
either.
But they wanted to kill him.
Yeah.
He was afraid for his life. He got death threats. 100%.
This is definitely a story where you can argue the ethics over it, because it's a very complicated story, and I empathize with her a great deal, but at the same time, it's maybe if she had just washed her hands, because she refused to wash her hands anyway.
Man, it's just it's unfortunate on so many levels.
And I don't know if it would have mattered if she'd washed her hands enough for her to stay out of, I don't know.
Great question.
She
and
is
they don't
there before this there were no cases of that they had known of asymptomatic
completely
carriers like
novel.
that. So,
and they didn't have a cure. They didn't know how to get.
well, they were like trying to treat it, but they were basically experimenting on her, which I don't agree with either. Like,
which, you know, nowadays, if anything experimental is happening in a medical setting, you have to legally disclose that.
mm-hmm. And then she's she's an immigrant. She's a woman. Like, makes me wonder, like, would she have been treated differently?
She's an immigrant.
Yeah, from Ireland.
Oh, right.
Uh-huh.
Oh, God. Yeah.
So, like, you know, would she have gotten better treatment where she part of a wealthier family that just happened to have this issue?
Yes.
So, yeah, like there's a lot to think about in that.
Of course.
But we're going to move on to an interesting topic, one of my favorites, botulism. Botulism.
We just had somebody comment on the Instagram that their dog died of botulism.
I am so sorry.
Very sad.
Yeah, it is very sad. Thankfully, it's rare, but it is something we need to talk about because it's pretty rough. It's one of the most powerful, awful toxins out there. Now, we've mentioned Clostridium botulinum during our talk on biowarfare. Do you remember how the U.S. government was actually planning an attack on Cuba using botulinum during the communist scare with Fidel Castro and all that in the 50s?
Love it.
We were talking about that a little bit.
What a time to be alive.
Indeed. Now, Clostridium botulinum, there's like 5 strains involved here, and the genus Clostridium is pretty nasty anyway.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it Clostridium difficile, the C. diff?
That's C. diff. But
gotcha.
This is botulism. This is this is Clostridium botulinum.
Gotcha.
Now, yeah, but it's basically the bacteria that produces the most potent of neurotoxins, botulin, which is responsible for botulism. Now, several other nations were actually making botulism toxins for use as weapons during World War II. It only takes 1/1,000,000th of a gram of the toxin to kill a man. And a pint could literally take out all the people on the planet if used correctly.
Wow.
So honestly, I don't think anyone should be messing with this stuff. There was an article I read in the New York Times that explained that botulism toxins were sprayed as a test over parts of the Canadian wilderness, and this killed like all wildlife within 6 hours.
Okay.
I don't know exactly where that was or how true it was, but it was they basically talked about that. Now, still, it was apparently never used in combat, thankfully. Botulism is a rare but serious illness that attacks the body's nervous system. There are different types, including foodborne, infant, and wound botulism, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Oh.
When botulin, the toxin, is consumed, it's absorbed via the intestines, then gets into the bloodstream, causing symptoms pretty quickly, about 12 to 36 hours. Within the nervous system, guess what neurotransmitter it messes with?
Acetylcholine?
Acetylcholine!
Get out of here.
Now, we've mentioned it before with nerve gases, so it makes sense.
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Oh, my God. So, like, you know, with nerve gases, this is the same one that's messed with. This is a neurotoxin, pretty much. So it blocks the release of acetylcholine, but not the production, just its release at the neuromuscular junction, preventing muscle contraction. So basically, you have paralysis.
Like Matt Gates' face.
Oh my God. I almost said polarisis. I'm like, what is polarisis? That's fun.
It's fun.
But yeah, Botox we're going to talk about Botox in just a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. That's funny.
So I hear jokes all the time about, LA hot girls who are way too far into Botox. And like, she was so surprised. Well, as surprised as she can be with that much Botox in her late 20s.
Or you could have like a permanent surprised face from it too. It depends on how it's yeah, we'll talk about it.
Depends on the skill of your plastic surgeon.
Now, symptoms of the illness include weakness and paralysis of muscles, drooping eyelids, double or blurred vision, dry mouth, slurred speech, difficulty swallowing, difficulty breathing, nausea and vomiting, and such. So
basically every morning you wake up.
Not me.
I'm just kidding.
Not I. Without treatment, the illness can be quite fatal as it attacks the nerves responsible for breathing. as we know. As we talked about this with nerve gases too.
Mm-hmm.
You die because of you can't breathe. You suffocate basically.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Clostridium botulinum is common in soil, and it feeds on dead or decaying matter. It's not the bacteria that's toxic, though. It's the toxin it creates under certain circumstances.
Oh.
So you probably ingest this bacteria on fruits and vegetables and seafood and such and have been fine.
Oh, dear.
But botulin is made when the bacteria reproduces in a low to no oxygen environment. So an anoxic environment, no oxygen, or little to no oxygen.
Okay.
Essentially, this stuff likes it warm, basic, and anoxic.
Okay.
So
I'll be on the lookout
that
for all those.
should be on a coffee cup. Warm, basic, anoxic.
And then Matt Gase's face.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry. Keep bringing him up.
Oh my
It's
God.
just so
You're going to give me
striking.
nightmares.
It's just so unsettling.
You're going to give me nightmares. It can also be found in swampy regions or anywhere that water is shallow and stagnant, where I don't like any of those ever because nothing good can come from shallow, stagnant water.
Like, I am still not on board.
Nope. So basically having a lower oxygen percentage. It can cause botulism and death in wildlife, especially in birds. There's been quite a bit of like bird botulism.
Okay.
Note, if you see a sick bird or animal of any sort, do not approach or touch it.
No.
Call the wildlife center, local wildlife centers about it because just don't.
And just don't let all the
don't.
TikToks fool you. Not every wild animal is great to approach.
No, and I would love to hug a bear, but I'm not going to do it.
No.
Can I pet that dog? But like, and I think raccoons are the cutest, but
Adorable.
I also don't want rabies. They're so adorable, but I don't want rabies. I love bats. I love bats. I think they're so adorable. But I don't want rabies.
Yep.
And I know it's typically rare for them, but I'm not taking the chance.
Oh, man.
Also, rabies shots here, it's expensive. It's incredibly expensive. It's like...
Remind us what the death rate is from rabies?
Oh, I want to say 100%, but there has been at least one person that survived it.
That's what we call luck. Scientific term for that? Luck.
Yeah. But once symptoms set in for rabies, and it can take for up to a year, I think, for symptoms to set in. But once symptoms set in, you're kind of done for.
No raccoons.
It's not cool.
Yeah.
I mean, animals can get vaccinated for it. You know, make sure you get your
Certainly.
dogs, your cats vaccinated for rabies. But
all the pet whatevers you see on social media, if they know what's good for them, they have been to a vet.
And honestly, if you have ever even been in the same room with a bat, get checked out because even if you don't think you've been bit or anything like that, if the saliva gets anywhere near like a open wound or anything like that, a cut, it's nasty.
Yeah.
Don't play with that. Now, the first documented case of botulism in humans was recorded in 1735 in Europe. I'm not saying the illness wasn't around before then. This was just when it was first reported.
For sure.
At that time, it was linked to German sausages, and the name botulism actually comes from the word botulus, meaning sausage.
Oh. That's like the funnest part of these diseases. Like, how would they name it after? The Greek word for sausage.
I love etymology and language.
It's fun.
I do. I love it. The bacteria Clostridium botulinum can contaminate produce and meat and then produce this toxin, botulin, when ingested, as we mentioned. So it's also been associated with canning, like canning foods. And today there are proper safety methods of canning, preserving, things like that. And if you're into canning, you should definitely know them. It's nothing like super crazy. There's just a process that you should know. Infant botulism, we're going to talk about in just a little bit. That's actually one of the reasons you shouldn't give babies honey. They need to be at least a year old before having honey. And we'll go over that in a minute.
Okay.
Now, going back to the 1700s for a bit. Well, 1790s into the 1800s. The kingdom of, I'm guessing it's Württemberg in Germany. Starts with a W. So
it's pronounced as a V.
Right. Is that right? Okay.
That's right.
Württemberg in Germany. And feel free, please, to correct me because I would love to know how to actually say it. Was having a bad time of it. And it was coming from smoked blood sausages. The Napoleonic Wars were also going on around this time. This was 1803 to 15. So with war comes poverty and a lack of ability to safely and adequately produce and sell certain foods. So you're just kind of surviving, doing your best. Also, hygiene at this time wasn't great either. The capital of Stuttgart actually passed an edict in 1802 during this outbreak of illness about the dangers of eating these sausages because they could see kind of a link there. No pun intended. I just caught that. A link, sausage link.
Get it? Just didn't let me explain it.
That was not intentional, honestly. Some believed the cause was prussic acid or cyanide poisoning, and it wasn't long before this that witches would have been blamed, and some probably still saw this as so.
I love that for us.
Witches.
We can't explain it, so how about witches?
Yeah. Their symptoms included drooping eyelids, paralysis, vomiting, slurred speech, difficulty swallowing, severe muscle weakness, and blurry vision. So that's familiar. A German doctor and poet by the name of Justinus Kerner took note that the symptoms in this outbreak seemed close to those of other neurological poisons, such as nicotine, snake venoms, and atropine, which we know.
Yeah.
Belladonna.
Yeah.
He could obviously tell it was affecting the gastrointestinal system and the nervous system. In 1820, he would be the first to accurately describe the clinical presentation of botulism, including how patients could be cognitively fine but experiencing weakness and neurological impairment alongside nausea and vomiting.
That's clever.
Yeah.
Okay. Good for you, buddy.
Death would occur.
Sorry.
Death would occur as a result of respiratory and cardiac failure because of the muscle weakness and paralysis, of course. Before being called botulism, however, he was calling it fat poison or sausage poisoning because it was to do with the meat. He knew it had something to do with the meat that was being eaten.
Okay.
Now, he did some studies on various animals, giving them spoiled sausages mixed with honey, and saw the same symptoms as he did in people. And this is like various different animals, from like flies to bigger mammals, and he also experimented on himself this way with just like a drop on his tongue. Don't do that.
Don't do that.
And described a feeling of contraction and choking in the area of the pharynx.
Oh, God.
Yeah, don't do that.
I mean, I respect it. Also, I hate it.
Yeah. And I understand, like, back then it was like, this is dedication, but don't do that. He would later accurately describe the neurological effects as, quote unquote, the capacity of nerve conduction is interrupted, which that's pretty good for back then.
Described it that
yeah,
way.
it's pretty good for back then.
Okay.
After publications on the subject, he would later be known as a sausage poisoning expert and as Wurstkerner or sausage kerner.
Get out of here. Oh, Wurst is German for sausage.
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
Wurst.
Bratwurst.
Liverwurst.
Leverwurst.
Now I want sausage. He was unable to isolate the toxin, but did have the first ideas to use it as a medicine. Like, he looked at it and was like, I wonder if this could help this, and this. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Now, closer to the 1900s, the bacterium itself, Clostridium botulinum, again, would be discovered in some contaminated ham as the producer of the toxin, and it would gain the name it now has. It has been found contaminating a lot of food items, but botulin is especially found in poorly prepared canned or pickled foods, illegal or prison-made hooch, also known as pruno, because I went down a whole rabbit trail of how you make.
I just love how you included the word hooch as this evidence, like that's like it's a proper noun.
I mean, it can be. Okay. Hooch.
You might as well have said, and also Grandpa's old cough medicine. You know what I'm saying?
Hooch is a thing.
Is that what it's called?
Hooch.
I thought that was a nickname.
I mean, it probably started as that, but yeah, hooch. Let me look it up. Hooch. Watch it be like, it's a proper noun. It is a noun. It's an informal noun, but it's a noun.
Oh, it's informal. Okay.
Alcoholic liquor, especially inferior or illicit whiskey. Hooch.
Oh, it just has to be illegal to be called hooch. So hooch could be moonshine.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like a general.
Well, this and like you wouldn't really know what else to call this because they were basically taking like fruit and just fermenting it, like in their prison cells,
Yes.
and like anyway, but yeah, basically it can cause botulism. Like if, and I don't want to say if prepared poorly because it's being prepared poorly because it's. I mean, like. I don't know what else.
Everybody's expectations.
I don't know how you would correctly.
Unrealistic.
Yeah, so there you
I
go.
hesitate to say prepared poorly because it's being made in a toilet in a prison cell.
I mean, yeah, it could be. So,
Oh,
also salted meats.
okay. Salty pork.
I knew you were going to say that. And jams or jellies that were not safely prepared or stored. And a lot of like safely prepared means like cooking to a certain temperature too to kill off anything.
You know, to be a normal human being. Pooch.
Mm. Now, you may remember us talking about the poison squad. Remember that? And how canned foods being sent to soldiers during wartime were really gross due to rot. And some were actually calling it embalmed beef because it smelled like it had formaldehyde in it.
Oh, God.
Yeah. You remember that?
Embalmed beef?
Yeah. There was also embalmed milk, remember? Crazy stuff. Now, in reality, it wasn't being properly preserved to endure the heat where the soldiers were. And this was in Cuba during the Spanish-American War in 1898. This is like the time they were actually talking about then. Now, the meat was rotten, basically. Canned foods were first mass-produced in 1811, and this was with corned beef. So a little history behind canned foods.
Corned beef got huge.
Now, the first American cannery was in 1812 in New York City. I want to say canning itself started in like France, maybe, like
In
actually
can?
like selling canned food. I could be wrong, but I think that's what I read.
France, where the film festival is.
It's Cannes, the Cannes Film Festival.
Okay, is that where canning started? I
No,
must know.
I don't think so.
Little joke there.
Yeah. Is it Cannes though? I think I've heard it called Cannes Film Festival. I don't go many places. I've sorry.
Never heard a native French speaker pronounce the name. I don't remember.
I'll never be able to travel there anyway. It's too expensive, and I don't plan on going to a film festival. Don't you be invited to that anyway? Is that a celebrity thing?
Like a submission process.
It's like a celebrity thing, yeah.
It kind of, but it's they've got a submission process.
I know nothing about the social world. Okay. So, thankfully, there are better canning methods today, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But at the time, they would basically boil food until it was mushy and stick it in handmade tins. Now, the heating process would be uneven and would basically...
was it wood fires?
It could produce like spoiled meats as well as whatever they had, really.
Yep.
Now, you also had to worry about lead contamination or other metals because like lead solder was what was typically used to seal these cans or tins.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So soldiers also ate canned foods during the Civil War, and it was basically the main source of food for any moving army at that time. You know, it's easy to carry around. Besides the food not being properly preserved, another issue was the contamination of bacteria, basically. So, including that producing botulin and causing botulism. So it would not be until about 1930 that safe industrial canning was a thing. They started adding like better seals and like there was a better preservation process. So now, also at that time, though, various chemicals were tried as preservatives. And we talked about this when we talked about the poison squad as well. These included boric acid, salicylic acid, sulfites, and sulfurous acid. And all of these were tested and found to be harmful in different ways to the human body during Harvey Wiley's poison squad trials, if we remember. So the early years of canning food could be very dangerous for quite a few reasons. And it wasn't just canned foods. While canning provides a perfect environment for Clostridium botulinum to produce its toxins, it can easily do so with other foods as well, such as seafood that has been at too high of a temperature, or seafood stored with little acidity or little salinity, like little sodium, like low sodium levels. But just before World War I, Americans were actually urged to can their own foods to preserve limited resources. Because, they're going into, they're like, war is coming and all this stuff. Some even got together communally to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And canned food was even likened to a monument of patriotism at one point. So, interesting.
Yeah, you're supporting the war effort.
Yeah, by doing this. Now, botulism did result from improper home canning, but people believed rumors at this point that somehow German-made canning lids had been intentionally contaminated and like sent to them, I guess.
Okay.
There would be instructions printed in newspapers on how to can foods to prevent these outbreaks, but America kind of lost a lot of trust in canned foods overall around this time. In December of 1919 and on into 1920, there was an outbreak of botulism that killed 28 people in Ohio, Michigan, and New York, with smaller outbreaks in other states as well.
Yeah.
These cases were due to canned black olives. So the canning and olive industries came together once this was known to work out strategies to safely process and ship olives to prevent such a thing happening again.
Okay.
And so, yeah, they're basically, they worked that out, but 28 people died. That sucks.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to discuss infant and wound botulism real quick, as well as botulin's use in healthcare. Okay. Why are you laughing?
I can see the guy's face again.
Oh my God. So infant botulism was first identified in 1976 in the U.S. It is rare, thankfully. It's caused by consuming spores of Clostridium botulinum. Basically, to prevent infant botulism, you should not feed babies younger than 1 year, 1-year-old honey, as it is the most common way they can become infected. There are spoils also in soil, dust, and some corn syrups. Basically, keep kids from eating dirt, honey, and spoiled food before the age of 1. Okay, that's the best you can do, really.
There you go. And don't worry, they will want to put everything in their mouth.
They will, yeah. Not Camilla though. Camilla didn't want. She barely eats food. I have to like make her try things. But symptoms of infant botulism include constipation, poor feeding, weak cry, drooping eyelids, slow or absent facial expressions, diminished suck and gag reflexes, loss of head control, this sort of like floppiness, and respiratory difficulty. So it's gonna like babies can't always tell you, obviously, what's wrong or what they're feeling. So you kind of have to observe with them.
Mm-hmm.
It's treated in the hospital with botulism immune globulin and support as needed. Antibiotics do not help, but may be needed if other infections like pneumonia develop. And it needs to be detected and treated early, as permanent disability or death can occur in these cases.
Mm-hmm.
Now, wound botulism is also rare, but potentially fatal. It is basically when the bacteria, the Clostridium botulinum, gets into a wound and produces the botulin toxin. This is why it's really, this not just this, but one of the many reasons why you should always keep wounds clean, covered, things like that. And don't go in the ocean with an open wound. You would not believe the amount of people around here that are like, the salt will heal it.
No.
There's so many bacteria and viruses in the ocean.
There are ocean-borne pathogens,
yes,
just like fresh water.
Yes. I love the ocean like anybody else. Sometimes. The sand gets on my nerves. But still, don't do that. Also, it's just gross. So, yeah, but wound botulism is most likely to infect IV drug users, especially black tar heroin users. In 2017 in New York, 17 out of 19 lab-confirmed cases were caused by IV drug use. Another way to be infected is dirt or soil getting into a wound, but that's just more rare. Symptoms are similar and appear from hours to days of exposure. You've got the sudden muscle weakness or paralysis, the blurred or double vision, drooping eyelids, slurred speech, difficulty swallowing, impaired gag reflex, and respiratory problems. Treatment includes wound debridement, which can be a pretty complex thing.
Be painful as well.
Yeah, you're literally cleaning out any dead materials. You're basically scraping out that wound. Antitoxin therapy, which is basically the injection of antibodies to help fight that off. Certain antibiotics and a tetanus booster, so you don't get tetanus, which we'll cover tetanus in a later episode, but tetanus ain't cool.
Nope.
Quick treatment often allows for a quick 2-week recovery, though. So, like with proper treatment, you can recover pretty well. Without treatment, it can be nasty. Now, as we know, botulinum toxin works by blocking the nerve signals that get muscles to contract. There are some medical conditions that actually can be helped in this way. Botulinum toxin or Botox used with small amounts of toxin at the specific spot that needs treatment is how it's usually given. Now, conditions that botulinum can help may include strabismus, which is like an eye muscle problem, like where both eyes aren't looking in the same direction all the time. Dystonia, where the muscles are contracting when you don't want them to. Blepharospasm, that's basically like eye dystonia. Chronic migraines. I actually had a cousin who was getting Botox injections for chronic migraines to help pain.
Really?
Yeah. It helps with that. Hyperhidrosis, which is basically excessive sweating. It helps with that.
Get out of here. Okay.
And overactive bladder. Now, Botox is just the brand name, basically. Like, it's a brand name of the botulinum. Now, it is also used in cosmetic treatments. And when given properly, there are few, if any, side effects. Now, one risk, though, is if it spreads beyond the treatment site. So always get Botox from a licensed provider if you're going to go with it. Because with spreading, it can cause unwanted muscle weakness or paralysis. It can cause vision problems and issues with breathing, swallowing, or speaking. Also, if given improperly, there can be nasty infections, but that's not just with Botox. That can be with anything you inject into your face. I mean, it can, if it's not properly given, if people are not using proper hygiene, proper tools, proper they're not sanitizing things. It can be bad. So you really shouldn't go to some like strip mall place and have these things injected into you. It's not a good idea.
No.
So yeah. So it's a deadly toxin, but it can also be a helpful treatment. So the dose makes the poison.
Makes the poison.
Once again,
some people have said.
Well, also the formulation and administration, because right, like you have to be careful with all of that.
That's right.
But yeah, that's botulinum. But like, I've also heard like that with like a lot of younger people are getting Botox therapy, which concerns me because and I understand why they're doing it. They think it's going to prevent wrinkles, but in my opinion, the things that I've seen and the studies that I've read, it can actually lead to premature aging, because what it's doing is you're paralyzing those muscles of your face, and eventually though your face is going to start to lose. Like if you don't use the muscles, you lose the muscles.
How about
so like your face is going to start to sag. It's going to start to lose that muscle tone.
How about, and hear me out, everybody ages.
We do age.
You're going to get old. The only thing you can attempt to do is age well, but nobody escapes aging. That's sorry.
True. Yeah.
It just honestly, happens, dude.
My tips on aging: just take care of your skin, wear sunscreen, stop tanning.
You do a wonderful job at that.
And
it's, your skin looks fantastic. I can attest to that.
If you can, like if you smoke, stop smoking.
Yeah.
Because drinking will cause, a lot of that. And sometimes just genetics. Sometimes,
Sure.
Like a lot of these people that you see in magazines and stuff and online, it's genetics, and it's picture doctoring.
Yes.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like
it's marketing. The only thing that really matters is how you have treated the people closest to you or your friend.
I get that. Yeah, but a lot of these people have learned to have these insecurities, though. So it's also helpful to be empathetic, I think, and be like, I understand,
Yeah, I understand. Yes,
but these are the risks you run.
Sure. I understand insecurity.
That.
I've got my own as it is, but I'm telling you, it's just
it doesn't. Well, it's also these treatments can be they are the ones that are not for things like migraines or actual conditions.
No, I'm talking about aesthetic.
Yeah, I know,
strictly aesthetic.
But like those that are just for aesthetic use, they are elective, and so they're going to be
100%.
They're not covered by insurance, and so you're going to be paying quite a hefty price for some of these. And I think with Botox, it's supposed to only last like 6 months. And it just, of course, they've been coming out now with things about fillers and how they just migrate. They don't just.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, they don't. Really, I have an issue with putting anything into my face and that's just me.
Sure.
I can't even I thought it would be cool to have like a nose ring, but I can't do it. I just can't put something in my nose.
What you said?
It's cute on other
And my
people,
nose.
but like for me, just thinking about the idea of someone putting anything in my face, like that just really bothers me.
Sure.
I can't even wear earrings either, though, because I have allergies
Right.
to
Your
so many
your
different
skin.
metals. It just wouldn't work out
And I
for me.
literally had to buy you a silicone set of rings.
Yeah, because
your
Mhm.
gorgeous wedding rings started
Mhm.
breaking your skin out.
They
That
did.
was so
Yep.
sad. It's such a beautiful ring.
Yeah. But yeah, it's and then my allergist is like, well, you should try. Just why don't you try getting platinum? I'm like, bruh, we can't all afford platinum, dude. So
That was hilarious.
yeah. So, but I've always wanted one of those little fake rings that go like right there where your septum is. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Just go around because I just can't put an actual needle in my face.
It's tough.
That's just me. I think it looks cool on other people. I just can't imagine myself because like that would just the process kind of icks me out a little bit.
All right. Well, I think I've judged people enough for one episode.
Yeah, there you go. But if you're going to do that route, though, if you're going to go with Botox, fillers, anything like that, please, please, please do it with a licensed professional. Do not go to these little corner.
Yes.
Like, don't do that. It can be very, very dangerous.
That's right. There may be no legal recourse.
And
with
you don't
somebody
know
who
what
is
they.
not- Yeah.
They may be using materials that are not meant to be used for that. So just be careful, please.
Yeah.
And that's all I got for you.
Great stuff. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, buddy. Hope you find your dad.
Oh, Lord.